You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode 3 of our 10-part bonus series, we talk about the boundaries and bets that people make to secure a relationship. We go into the ways that men and women think and feel differently. We discuss the luxury of operating based on how you feel. And we also mention some of the impact we feel that fathers have when it comes to dating.
Yeah, and I think the point around boundaries is probably the most important point that I want to echo, because I agree that, especially younger women are just really giving it up in hopes of making a connection. That's it. It's just like, it's like a bet. It's like, oh, I like him. He wants this. I'm gonna do this in hopes for getting more. And it's just like, that's not, like, guys don't, it doesn't mean that much. And that's the primitive part of it, in the sense that guys just, they just want to have sex. They can have sex without having emotions, for sure. But so many women are making that bet. And I think it's so important to have boundaries around what you want. And I think it's important for women to have boundaries around what they want and what they don't want, because to your point, like, if a guy likes you, he will navigate not having sex with you immediately, or in 30 days or 60 or whatever, however long it is that you decide that you don't want to have sex. And if he doesn't, then he probably doesn't really like you. And that's okay. But it's important to know what we want as women and make sure we're getting that, because a guy is going to get sex if that's what he wants.
Yeah. And 2 points there. To be real, what a guy would do in that situation is, especially if you guys are not together yet, he may be getting sex somewhere else and still really trying to see what's up with you. Mm-hmm. Right? And we'll be trying to learn you and grow with you, even though he's getting sex somewhere else, because he still likes you. Yeah, but sometimes we are so caught up until we got to be in a relationship. We got to be in a relationship that we just don't grow with people and get to know them. And the kicker is, you made a point that he may not like you like that. Well, you're right in some ways, but sometimes he just doesn't know you well enough yet. And I think, speaking of my experiences and other people's experiences, sometimes women are very guarded in the beginning, right? And I think we talked about data points, right? And mm-hmm. I'm probably talking about this more when you're a little bit older, 27, 28, what have you. But we just don't get data points, or the type of data points that are valuable to us, until there's a level of comfort that a woman has, right? But that could be 2 months into us meeting and hanging out. It could be 3 months in. And a lot of times women, the data points that women are looking for just happen to be more superficial, not superficial and fake, but they just come off quicker, right? So examples would be, and I think we talked about this, right? Let's say we met and we've gone out, right? Or we met and I'm asking you out, and I ask you, hey, I can come pick you up, let me know if you want me to pick you up. Whether you say yes or no, that is an indicator to you that he cared mm-hmm. enough to pick me up, or at least ask to pick me up. If a guy drops you off or walks you to your car, indicator. If he drops you off and waits till you get in before he leaves, indicator. There's so many important indicators from a security, thoughtful, protection standpoint that are important to women that you can get on the first 2 or 3 dates. But the ones that matter to the guys around trust, is she gonna be there for me? It naturally just takes time to see that in someone. Another guy, she with me just for my money, depending on the dynamics. It takes time to see some of those things. And so women often get to the conclusion for themselves, okay, this is a quality person. I want to take it to the next level. And probably in the first month and a half, they didn't feel that way or weren't sure yet. So they weren't giving their full selves to the person. And then a month, 2, now they're I like this guy. I'm gonna start being myself. And then they're what are we doing? And he just started seeing what kind of person you are. And I think those are like the dynamics that like people struggle with, is like the timetable that women have, and not like on a, she's speeding the process up. You just get data points earlier than guys do on the things that are important to you.
Yeah, I think it's twofold, maybe. The first point though, around like getting data points sooner, I actually think that this is a prime example of like how men and women are different, and our minds literally work differently, in the sense that women are able to think and feel at the same time, and men think and then feel, think and then feel, think and then feel. And I think an example of this is sort of related to one of the points that you made earlier around like analyzing. Like the analyzing is the thinking. And then you have a feeling, you analyze it later alone, and then you go back and say, okay, this is how I feel. Because it's around the point of like guys compartmentalizing. Like you think about work when you're at work, you think about sports when you're watching sports, you think about your boys when you're with your boys, and it's not all happening at the same time. And women are thinking and feeling, which I think just sort of enables that, enables the sort of processing of those indicators that you mentioned more quickly and sooner. But I don't disagree that that's sort of what happens. Women get all their data points earlier, and men are like still processing, thinking, and feeling. I think the other point, though, around like getting these indicators, I sometimes feel that women have like not vanity indicators, but like not deep enough.
Probably.
Just because he, calls you and walks to your building to open the door,
doesn't
does that make him a great guy? Yeah. Not really. Like, is that all that you want in a man? Probably not. But if you are hard pressed for a relationship, then you're like, oh shit, he's a nice guy. Like, oh, he does these things. He pulls out my chair. He is like hitting all of these points.
I told you the bar is low. The bar is low.
Yeah, exactly. So I would encourage all the women out there to not be so quick to check off the box on those indicators. I think is also around the point of boundaries, or like, what do you want? Like, what is it that you actually want? Knowing that is so important to actually getting what you want, because if you don't know what you want, you'll settle for anything. But I also think that sort of comes with age. So like to your point, 27 older, you're like getting it more, you're seeing, and you're like more self-aware.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why experience like matters. And I think it's important to like, when you're young, date and have fun, to learn like what works and doesn't work for you. But the point you made around, we don't think and feel, I think we can do that. I think it's just difficult for us to do that. And when I say difficult, I just mean it requires more energy to do that. And so part of that is just being a black man in society. Like, we don't have the luxury to operate based off how we feel, right? Like, if you want to survive, like when someone pisses you off, you just can't get mad. Like, you have to like keep going, and then you can process that later, right? And so when you like think about how like someone was raised, right? If a girl falls down, she's crying, like we like, you okay? We like let her cry it out. If a guy starts crying, if a young kid falls and starts crying, hey, stop that crying. You okay? You okay? Keep going. It's like we are raised in that environment not to immediately operate at what we feel and figure out what's the environment. Is it okay to feel this way? Is it hurt as bad as I think it hurts? And then go. And so I think all those things, whether it's a protection mechanism or whatnot, is what causes some of the things that we just talked about. But I think it just takes more work. And so when a woman is asking a guy or trying to find out, like, are you guys ready to take a relationship to the next level? Sometimes it's not about where a woman may think it is. It's not just about him and other people, right? Because I think that's like the most like natural instinct to say that, well, he wants to talk to all these other people, right? There's also a large part of it is that like now he's going to have to think about work and you, right? Like he's going to have to, like, now you're a focal point. And that's a lot more work to, as his days going on, dealing with whatever he's normally dealing with, and now having a person that he's responsible for thinking about all the time. And so guys are not quick to do that, because that's like, once you turn that switch on, it's hard to turn it off.
I've heard that, actually. Yeah. I mean, I have heard that. I think it sort of discredits all of the things that women also deal with on a day to day, especially as we're more educated and more successful. Yeah, I mean, we are not necessarily being gunned down by police at the same rate, even though Black women are. But we still deal with societal pressures. We still deal with the BS at work. We still deal with all of the things that Black men deal with. And we also, once we let someone in, we feel responsible for them. We feel the impact of them. So I hear you,
But you don't. It's cool. It's cool. And that's why people are different. And I'm not saying what I'm saying to like discredit that women, or to like even allude to the fact that women don't have a hard time. I just think the way that women are made up generally, it doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't require the same amount of work. They're just more naturally able to cope with those things than guys are, right?
Yes.
And so like
Yes.
because of that, it's, for lack of better words, easier because it's more within your wheelhouse. Like you guys are just more naturally caring, compassionate, do whatever it takes kind of people, where like guys are like, we're about respect. We're about like, we just operate from a different perspective, where that same gesture may take more energy or mental capacity than something that's very natural for you to do. That's what I mean by it. Not that like the world ain't tough out here for Black women, because it is.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree with you
Before all
there.
your fans come at me.
I think that's related to the point I was saying about like women being able to think and feel sort of simultaneously. And I agree, like the energy that it takes a man to do both of those. Not to say he can't do it, it's just more energy.
But and the only thing that I'll add, in some ways, that's like everything, right? Like your greatest strength is probably your greatest weakness, right? And I was at this event, and so I think that goes the same with women, and a little bit of defense of the guys. I don't think that makes women better than men. I think there's a balance within both of those things, because I was talking to a lady in my apartment building. I was talking about my podcast, and they're ganging up on me, talking about how like women are more mature than guys, blah 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 blah. And I was arguing the point that like if this guy can go to work and get promoted and do what he needs to do, like he's mature, he just doesn't care about that relationship's not being prioritized. And I said like the issue with guys is that like, and then she was like, well, women are more emotionally mature, and I was like, yeah, meh. I don't know that I agree with that.
Wow.
Because I think where we miss each other is that men may not know how to communicate or been taught how to communicate how they feel. So oftentimes they just don't. Whereas sometimes women communicate how they feel and don't understand what that means. So they're just like communicating, and they don't even really know what that means to them, but they're projecting it out there. And so being more communicative about your emotion doesn't mean that you're emotionally mature. Right?
So what does it mean?
It just means that you communicate. Like you're communicative. Like you being able to say like I'm sad, and communicating that you're sad doesn't mean that you're mature. Like you may not know the source of the sadness. You may not know what triggered the sadness. You may not know my role in the sadness, but all you're telling me is that you're sad. Where the guy may not even tell you he's sad. And so you're like, I know you feeling something. Why can't you just like share with me what you're feeling? And so I don't think being communicative means that you're more emotionally mature. I just think there's levels to it all. That's my argument. I'm sticking to it.
I like that argument. I agree. I don't disagree with that.
Man, if I had some sound effects right now, I hit them all.
Okay.
Got him, coach.
I'm going to use that as a segue because I think it's a perfect time for us to talk about the sort of theme of my podcast, Girl Talk with Pops. So Girl Talk with Pops takes on a different spin on relationships and love. So obviously I want to take a few minutes to get your perspective or your experience with women as it relates to their fathers, because, all of us have seeds that our parents planted in us, and our relationships with our parents and families, they, to the point you made earlier, they impact the dynamics that we have with our partners and people that we date. So I want to touch a little bit on that and understand sort of your experience with women and their fathers. But first, what do you think is the impact that fathers have on their daughters' dating lives? Or do you have any specific sort of notable experiences with women and how they relate to their fathers?
I think it's significant. Like, that's probably the best way to put it. And I don't mean that it's significant, like more significant than like a mother being around. I think, honestly, like, God knows what he's doing, right? Like, God brought both of those people together and said, like, we need both of you guys there raising these young people, these children, because both are needed to like really provide that balance. And I think if you don't have one or the other, like, you can lack in a lot of ways in terms of what you're taught, or you have to find like alternative options or sources to get that information. But keeping it on like the father, I think, I can't speak to what it means to be like, what that relationship looks like in the sense of what people have received from their fathers, because I think if I look back at everyone, I had never thought about this. Everyone that I've seriously dated, their fathers haven't been around.
Have not,
which is crazy.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I will answer the question in what I feel like my responsibility will be as a father if I have a daughter. And I think my responsibility will be to like make sure she's aware, right, of like what's to come, make sure that she understands her value in terms of who she is as a person, but also in that recognize that she's not the end all be all too. Like, there's a balance with it. Like, yeah, you my princess, but you mine. Like, they don't know you the way I know you, right? And so I think that there's a balance within, like, I'm not blowing you up to have you walk out of my house thinking that everybody that encounters you is going to treat you the way I treat you. You should have an expectation that over time, and there's a bare minimum of what kind of respect and things that you won't put up with, but that stuff happens over time, right? There's an expectation of what like a good man looks like and what she will put up with and won't put up with, and also what she has to do to make sure that like she is doing her part in that relationship. Like, it's just not just going to come to you. And so right. I think there's a level of like self-worth that a father shows a daughter, a level of respect that he shows his daughter in terms of treatment. And there's a level of like realness that he shows her in terms of like, this is the reality of things. And that comes with protecting someone, letting them know what to expect, or giving them some insight to like, this world ain't nice as it is in this house, is all part of that responsibility to a father to a daughter. And when you don't have that, what happens, I think, is that the single parent on either way is forced to do more. And sometimes people overcompensate, or sometimes people just don't do enough. And then you're left to trying to find alternative options, whether they're healthy options or not, to fulfill that void that you have.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that, and this doesn't particularly pertain to fathers and daughters specifically, because the same can be true for sons and mothers, or even
sons
mothers and daughters
dads,
and fathers and sons.
Yep.
I think if your parent is not around, then you're always going to be looking to fill that gap. But I am curious to hear, I want to double click on the fact that you have dated women whose fathers aren't in their lives.
Yeah, I need to start filtering differently. Try something new.
I wonder.
I'm just playing.
Like, are you surprised to even think about that? Like,
I didn't think about it because, like, again, it's funny. I just talked about on the podcast I released, and Because someone brought to me my attention that and I've been very intentional about trying to create like a diversity in the men that I'm interviewing, and like the wives were an afterthought. I was like, you married, cool, check the box. But a young lady brought to my attention that it seems like all the women that are married to these guys you've interviewed all come from, a situation where both their parents are around, and I never thought about it. And so I do think that like, not to say that someone that doesn't have a parent around, like a woman that doesn't have a parent around, can't be a great partner. I just think there's a lot to learn, right? And that comes either through like experiences with people, or I think that primarily comes through experience with people, or you have other people in your community, in your tribe, that help you learn those things, because it's tough, like just having a mother, right, that has to try to figure out how to be tough on you and like gentle with you, right? It's tough, like being in those environments where you don't know where that line is on your self-worth. And not to say the people I was with were like that, but I can only imagine the things that people may not be getting when they're only with a single parent. And I'm sure there's some great moms out there that are teaching their children that, but I just think it just probably more prevalent when you have both parents around. And so in my experiences, I just think that like a lot of people had things to learn when it came to like relationship. And I think that the way I could tell like the way they viewed life was very much attributed to how they grew up in their household. Not only like the parent dynamic, but also their sibling dynamic, if I think about it. And so some of it is just like, I think my situation's a bit unique because I'm blessed to have both parents. I've had like siblings of both genders. And then I've also been in an environment where like my parents are Nigerian, right? And so I've been like, from a cultural standpoint and understanding that like, not sweat the small stuff, because I know that my life easily could have been in Nigeria had my parents not made the sacrifices they made, and I've been there to see what their life looks like. All of that shapes how I see the world, right? And the things that I am going to stress about, the things that I don't stress about, and things that I do stress about. And I think the more that those things are like at odds or not on the same path, the more that you guys are having to like try to teach each other or get aligned on the same things. And my mom told me when I got out of my last relationship, she was like, marriage is hard. Like relationship is hard. And so that's why you see people marry in the same ethnic group or this like with a lot of similarities, because the more you have things that are not already aligned, you're taking something that's already super hard and making it harder. And so I think when you have people that have different value systems, not to say that one is better than the other, but just very different, finding alignment is tough, especially if you don't have the skills to communicate, right? Or you haven't been reflective enough into understanding why you feel the way you feel, or what causes, like what in your past causes your current perspective. And I think generally speaking, not just guy or girl or both parents or not parents, people haven't taken enough time to really be introspective and try to understand, why they feel the way they feel, what triggers them, and how their past impacts how they see the world today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is incredibly important. Like, I started doing that thinking a couple years ago, like seriously after a serious relationship, because I was really trying to understand how I process things, why I process things the way that I did, why I felt the way that I did, why, there were differences in how we connected, et cetera, et cetera. And so much of it is related to how you were raised, because I mean, it's how you were conditioned. And if your condition did not include another parent in the household, then obviously it's going to impact how you partner with someone else. And I think the point around aligning on values, especially or beliefs, is so important, because when we think about often when people think about love and relationships and partnerships, they think about partnership, but they don't really go deep into their beliefs on how they spend their free time, how they vacation, how they interact with their family, how often they see their family. Stuff like that, it causes friction. If you were not raised in a household that does things the same way, then to your mom's point, it's going to be extremely hard to be with somebody that does something different. And when you're already different people. So you're just adding, not to say it can't be done, it's just like being able to recognize that, I think is incredibly important. But having the tools to actually like work through it is also like super duper important. So I agree. It's really fascinating, because I think people get caught up in sort of those early indicators. They just see the early
that's why I don't be
indicators.
trying to. Yeah, no, that's why I be trying to rush it, and y'all be putting pressure on me to like rush. I'm like, listen, I'm just trying to learn you. Let me just learn you, and like it don't gotta mean like let's just learn each other. But
Y'all stop putting pressure on Chidozie, please.
yeah,
Okay?
let's just like learn each other. Like I'm on like a forever goal. Like let's just learn each other and then make a decision respectfully, right? But what you can do is check out episode 4 of our bonus 10-part series, where we discuss the difference between daddy issues versus abandonment issues. We talk about the importance of valuing the process just as much as the results. We go into detail the slogan, happy wife, happy life, and why it's really true. And we also talk about the difference between knowing someone and trusting someone. I want to thank you all for listening. I'm hoping that you're enjoying this 10-part bonus series. Be sure to subscribe. We're on all major platforms. And follow us on Instagram at ThinkLoveWife. We want to hear your thoughts. Be sure to leave a review. And let me know what you're thinking. Until then, I hope the conversation keeps going.